Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is Fertility Talk. We unfortunately we're not doing this live. This is pre-recorded. We are talking to Neville, Neville Moodley, and he is from Genesis Reproductive Centre. So welcome, Neville. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of Fertility Talk and a part of our series. Yeah, and also we've got Rizana again. So thank you, Rizana, for also joining us today. So we're going to get straight into it. We're talking about how do treatments vary with success rates? So this is part 4 in the series of preparing for fertility treatments. As I mentioned, we are talking to Neville. So Neville, welcome. And please, will you tell us more about what it is that you do, who you are, what your role is at Genesis?
Thank you so much, Leanne. It's so nice to see you again online. And also, thank you to Razana as well. Thank you to Fertility
Thanks, Neville.
Solutions for having us on your talks. So I'm part of Genesis Reproductive Centre, and Genesis Reproductive Centre is based in Pretoria East at Mediclinic Kloof Hospital. It's a very wonderful clinic which is very based on individualized patient care. So it's patient centricity, which is very important to us. And if you do visit Genesis Reproductive Center, you would see the ambience of Genesis Reproductive, which is a very homely type, very warm, which we pride ourselves on the compassion of our care for our patients, together with the patient centricity and empathizing with our patients with what they are going through, including the world-class services, because we've got wonderful fertility specialists and also expertly qualified embryologists. So from an academic point of view, from a technical point of view, and from a holistic approach, compassionate care and empathetic care with scientific approaches is what we're looking for at Genesis Reproductive Center, which you will experience when you come to Genesis. My role, I'm the lab director, so it's a fancy title for the lead baby maker or embryologist. Yeah, so I'm the lead embryologist in charge of, I'm also in charge of the operations of Genesis Reproductive Center as well. So I'm the lab director and operations manager as well at the Genesis Reproductive Center. So you would see that when you come to Genesis, you have an array of staff, which is from our administrative the staff which are so friendly and warm, to our beautiful IVF coordinators who are so compassionate and so loving and caring to our patients, to the expertise of your embryologists also, who take a very keen and active role in our patients' care.
Okay, thank you very much. I've actually been to Genesis offices, and it is you're absolutely right. It's a very friendly environment when you walk in, and
Thank you.
everybody's very nice. So I really enjoyed it there. So we're going to get straight into the questions. What is IUI and what is IVF now? Always just remember, guys, when we are talking, Neville is actually a lab director and is an embryologist. So we are talking from that aspect when we answering these questions. So the question is, what is IUI and what is IVF?
So, the basic definitions of IUI and IVF is that an IUI is called intrauterine insemination. So intra into uterine in uterus, and insemination, that means inseminate into the uterus. Now, with the intrauterine insemination, there are certain factors that will allow a patient to have an IUI done, or the abbreviation IUI for intrauterine insemination. The factors is that there must be at least one patent tube for the patient or the female patient, and at least there must be the male factors, the sperm should be at least normal zoospermic, that is normal, or above 10 million sperm with a good morphology and good forward progression of the sperm. The morphology looking at about 3-4% with a good forward progression of greater than 32% forward progression. In the IUI, what will be done is the sperm will be collected, and then it will undergo a sperm wash. Then either can be a density gradient wash, or the DGC wash, or a swim up wash where sperm swims up, and then that washed sample is then drawn up into a catheter and is given to the doctor, and the doctor then will put it into the uterus via the cervix, and then it flushes the sperm sample into the fallopian tubes so that it can reach the eggs at the time of ovulation. So there again, there's mild stimulation because you don't want to produce too many eggs because of the rate of multiple pregnancies, which can be deleterious for the pregnancy. And also what happens is that uh, there is a trigger given, that is an ovulatory trigger. So we are controlling the cycle again and then timing it when we're going to do the IUI for the patient. So that's just the IUI aspect of it. The IVF is called in vitro fertilization. So in vitro means outside, and fertilization, so it's a fertilization that takes place outside, which is within controlled circumstances or controlled environment, which is a laboratory. With the IVF, you see the process is getting more expensive compared to an IUI. It's more invasive than an IUI because an IUI is minimally or non-invasive as compared to an IVF. But in the IVF process, you have where you stimulate the patient, you get multiple eggs or multiple follicles. The eggs are then retrieved via an aspiration, or where they retrieve the eggs. It comes to the laboratory. The sperm sample comes to us, and then we can employ two different fertilization techniques. One is a standard IVF or conventional IVF, where a concentration of sperm is put with an egg in order for it to fertilize naturally. So it's a natural thing that it will do even within the fallopian tube. And then the second aspect, where you have male factor infertility or a previous fertilization failure after IVF or etc., is where we also anti-sperm antibodies. If a male patient has antibodies against the sperm, then you will employ the process called ICSI, which is called intracytoplasmic sperm injection, meaning you're injecting the sperm into the cytoplasm of the egg. So hence it's intracytoplasmic sperm injection. So from there, then you inject the sperm into the egg, and then you would watch the fertilization. The differences is with the IVF versus the ICSI as well, is that IVF, you're leaving it with an egg with a certain concentration and you're waiting for it to find naturally. But you can get failure in fertilization. Whereas with the ICSI, you know you've injecting, so you have more control of the fertilization as compared to the IVF. The difference, and then you have the development process after that. So with the IVF, it's a 5-day development process. It's like a funnel process. You have so many amount of eggs. You have to see how many of those eggs are mature. Once you can only inject the mature eggs, which is called a metaphase 2 egg. Then from there, you have to see how many of those that have been injected fertilize. Thereafter, to see how many of them divide after they fertilize. Eventually, to see how many form. And then they will divide 4 cell, 6 cell, 8 cell, 10 cell, and then about day 4 it will become more than 16 cells, which is called a morula. And then eventually on day 5 or 6 you'll get this highly complex structure, which is called a blastocyst, and that is the actual product that we want to see, end product that we want to see, from the eggs and sperm to the end product, which is a blastocyst. So that is what we want to transfer, and the quality of the blastocyst will be graded to see which is a better blastocyst to transfer into a patient. I think one of the important factors to look at from an IUI perspective and an IVF ICSI/ICSI process is that you gather more information from an IVF as IVF/ICSI versus an IUI. Because with an IUI, you know you are stimulating the patient, you're hoping that there is an egg within the follicle, you're hoping that the ovulation takes place as it should, you're putting the sperm, you're hoping that the sperm will find the egg, it'll fertilize, and then it'll migrate its way down to the uterus in order for the implantation to occur. But with the IVF/ICSI, then we have more information is gathered. We can see now the number of eggs that is produced, because sometimes patients may have pseudo follicles where they think there's an egg in there, or we think there's an egg in because it's growing and so forth,
Mm.
but there's no egg. So we can
Yeah.
see what's happening with the retrieval. The second part is we can look at the grades of the eggs and the quality of the oocytes that we're getting. And then also look at the development process. That is to see what is actually happening, because we have controlled circumstances using incubators and so forth. And we can see the development and track the development to see how the process is happening, or what is supposed to be happening within the patient's body. How is it happening there? Which gives us ideas of if there's any problems, because we can see fragmentation, we can see
Mm.
uneven blastomere sizes, we can see so many different things within, and then eventually the end product, which is the quality of the blastocyst that is being produced.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important thing to take with
Yes.
regards to an IUI versus an IVF/ICSI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Um, I,
very much for that very detailed
yeah,
explanation. I found that
I hope it wasn't too long.
no, 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 it was quite
it's
insightful. It was quite
fine.
insightful.
I'm actually realizing that you are actually the one that deals with all of it, after
Yeah.
everything gets done. You
Yeah.
you so you would have more insight, which is great. So I'm glad we're having this conversation with you. We're gonna get into the next question. I think Rizana, you've got a question for him.
Yes, yes. When would you move to IVF, or are there any circumstances where the patient would be recommended to move straight to IVF?
So I think that comes into a point of what are the factors, or what is the criteria
Yeah,
that is recommended for an IUI versus an
yeah,
IVF/ICSI.
yeah,
Yeah.
For an IUI, as we said, the female patient needs to have at least one patent fallopian tube, because you can't do an IUI if the blue tubes are blocked, because the sperm
yeah,
is not going to get to them.
yeah,
So you need to have at least one patent fallopian tube, and a sperm sample that has at least greater 10 million or greater sperm, with a good morphology of at least 3 to 4% and good forward progression. And why is that important? Because remember, we need to wash the sperm, so we're going to activate the
yeah,
sperm and make it swim faster. But we also want a good concentration, because the sperm have a half-life. They have a time for it to swim and to get to the egg. So sperm will eventually die off as they
yeah,
go in, because they use the energy and so forth. So we also need a good concentration of sperm, because you need a good concentration of sperm to get to the egg, to say, hi, I'm here, I need to do my thing, and then to enter the egg and say, let's fertilize, let's do
yeah,
what we need to do.
yeah,
With the IVF now, if the conditions of it is, firstly, is that one is if the fallopian tubes are blocked, and that can be from either a scarring tissue because of
mm,
endometriosis, or there's any pathological problems, but it also can be because a woman has had a tubal ligation done, and
mm,
a reversal sometimes is very costly, but is also not very effective or successful as well.
yeah,
So the patients will say, okay, like the doctor will say, let's do an IVF for you. But there's also other circumstances that is as well. So there may be pathology problems, endometriosis, PCOS. There can also be the ovulatory dysfunction as well. And also together with that is the condition of the uterus as well. Sometimes you have the
yeah,
fibroids and so forth. So those are important aspects. And then also male factor infertility. That is, like, if you have poor semen parameters or sperm parameters, then it makes no sense in us doing an IUI for the patient, because at the end of the day, it's not going to benefit the patient. So
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
have poor sperm male factor issues, then that's also an aspect that we have to look at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And then I have another question for you. What are the success rates of IUI and IVF? I think I think you did touch on it earlier, but what in your professional?
So I must state that, when patients come to us
Yeah,
for fertility treatment, they have a very low success rate somewhere, sometimes to a part where it's
yeah,
0 to 5%, because they're
Mm.
really not falling pregnant. I mean, the
yeah,
definition of infertility is the inability to conceive after a year of unprotected intercourse. And and the important aspect is unprotected intercourse,
mm,
So in that aspect, The international standards for IUI or the success rates is roughly between 11 to 15% for the IUI. And I think why it's lower, because remember, as we say, it's a bit on the blind,
Yeah.
more on the blind side. So
Yes.
Yeah.
putting in the sperm, you're trying to figure out if it does its thing or not. And
Yeah.
also remember, it's lower amount of eggs because we mild stimulation. So you're not
Yes.
having a larger cohort of eggs. And
Yes.
so hence the success rates is
Yeah.
11 to 15%, which is an average of it as well. With the IVF now, in more controlled circumstances, you know what's happening. You're also preparing, the doctors are preparing the patient's uterine lining as well with the progesterone supplementation and so forth. And in that aspect, then I think what's the most important thing is that we have to look at first is the woman's age.
Yeah.
The woman's age is the most important factor with regards to success rates because, excuse me, with the woman's age, I mean, increased age causes decrease in the amount of eggs because with lowered
Yeah.
AMH levels, that's called anti-Mullerian hormone,
Yeah.
which gives us an idea of the cohort of eggs that is available. And also, with the increased age comes decreased quality of the oocytes as well, or the
Yeah.
eggs itself. So, under those circumstances, the success rates differs from age between age here. But I mean, the general consensus is talking about a live birth rate, not just
Yeah.
pregnancy, but a live birth rate, which is a take-home baby.
Mm.
Under the age of 35, the statistics is about 41.4%. Between the age of 35 to 37, it is about 32.4%. Between the ages of 38 to 40 years of age, it is about 20.2%. From the ages of 41 to 42, it's about 9.6%. And over the
Wow.
age of 42, it's about 2.4%.
Wow.
And as you can see now,
Quite a
as you,
big variance.
yeah, so but the cumulative birth rate, I mean, average of it is about
Mm.
33%. If you take it across all age groups,
Yeah.
is about 33%. And I think another important aspect comes about where they talk about a cumulative IVF birth rate, and where they talk about a number of cycles of IVF that you have to do in order for you to fall pregnant as well. And
Mm.
there was many studies that are done which talk about that. And uh, one of the studies showed a cumulative live birth rate of 52% after 3 cycles of IVF.
Wow.
And in the same study, they showed a 72% success rate after 6 cycles of IVF rate and an 85% success rate after 12 cycles of IVF. But remember, these studies and so forth are European studies and
Yeah.
studies where they have lots of money, where the governments are funding them and
Yeah, I
so
was
forth.
gonna
Yes.
actually mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
Yeah, we
I
need
mean,
to pay for our own IVF.
yeah, in South Africa, I mean, in the African countries as well, excuse me, we are more concerned with first time the patient is coming. Let's see what's the best
Yeah.
we can do for the patient because we know finances is a problem and with
Yeah.
economic inabilities at the moment, together with
Yeah.
the dire consequences of the world economy as well. We have to see what's the best that we can do for our
Yes.
patients.
Yes.
I
Thank you
think
for
that,
that
So I hope
answer.
I've given you a
No,
brief
that's
overview of the
brilliant.
study.
yeah,
Absolutely amazing.
that's actually quite amazing to hear the success rates. I had no idea it was at some point quite high. So, but again, we also have to remember that it is, like you mentioned, European stats as well.
It'll
So,
be interesting to see what South Africa's just
yes,
statistics are.
yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
there is a conference that's going to be happening soon, which is the SASRIC conference, which is going to
In
be
March.
in March. And in that conference, the SARA data, which is the South African registry data, is going to be
Yeah.
released as well.
Okay.
It's going to be presented by Dr. Paveshan Archery, and he's going to present the SARA data there. So at least we will have a more
Yes.
comprehensive understanding of what the South African
Yes.
statistics are as well.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that information.
yeah, I hope we get to have a talk on that. We maybe can share some of that insight with us after that. That'll be great. We've got our last question is, what are your recommendations to anyone starting this journey in terms of best outcomes? We asked this on purpose because I know a lot of women are starting their journey now. In the beginning of the year, I'm sure you guys are fully booked with appointments and stuff like that, because everyone's starting it at this time of the year, and they're planning for the year. And it's always about, we want to make sure that we have the best outcome. We've done everything we can to prepare going forward for this, because like you mentioned, it is besides the emotional part about it, it's a very expensive journey. So you want to make sure we do take the right steps in planning, going ahead with this journey. So what would you recommend on your end?
And also taking into consideration the statistics that you just gave.
Yes.
So I think I'm from the laboratory aspect of it, so
yes,
I can't really say much about how to prepare the patient for the journey, the IVF journey. But what I can give is certain tips on, as we know that the IVF process or this fertility journey is quite an emotionally and psychologically draining process. And to some extent, it can actually be traumatizing to certain patients because of the process of, it's the fecundity process, the ability to actually conceive, and the emotional aspect and psychological aspect that goes with it as well. And, I know a lot of patients, they leave the fertility potential or the fertility ability later on because of careers and because of so many other factors in life that is sometimes in their control and also some not in their control as well, such as the pathologies that can arise because of endometriosis and adenomyosis and PCOS and ovulatory dysfunction and so forth. But I think one of the important things is to look at the lifestyle factors. I mean, which is the basic ones, which I think doctors have pushed us through, which is smoking is one of the biggest causes of poor lifestyle factors. I mean, it not only affects the aspects of your lungs and so forth, but it also affects the fallopian tube contractility as well, because of the cells that are based in the which is called a columnar ciliated cells, and that can affect that as well because it causes the cilia to become inactive, and which can also increase the chances of ectopic pregnancies. And then you have alcohol, as we know, which is in moderation, or to stay off alcohol when you are in the cycle, because in the cycle you're going to be taking medications, and you don't know how the medication is going to react with the alcohol, which is a general concept that is used throughout the medical fraternity, because you can't take alcohol and medication together. Drug use, it's a big problem in the kind of world now. The recreational drug use, especially your cocaine, marijuana, and all the other recreational drugs, because those have an effect with regards to the interaction of the drugs that you are using, with regards to the stimulation and so forth, and also impacts on your oocyte quality, impacts on your general lifestyle and so forth, and even on male fertility as well. That is another big important aspect, because recreational drugs can cause a compromisation of the blood testis barrier, which can increase the production of anti-sperm antibodies, but also recreational drugs and can also cause in the male aspect can cause increase in DNA fragmentation, because of the compaction of the DNA within the sperm head is not proper, and that is caused by drug use. Another important aspect with the alcohol is that guys, for a male aspect, is that excessive alcohol abuse or usage of alcohol can cause an increase in the viscosity of the semen. That means the semen is too thick, and thickness of the semen is supposed to liquefy, go from a semi-solid to a liquid phase in a certain amount of time. That can cause an increase in the liquefaction time, which can affect that as well. And then importantly, I think a lot of the people need to live healthy, exercise, watch your weight, watch what you're eating, because weight also plays a major important role in the fertility journey, and also in the end point of you actually achieving a successful pregnancy. And I think a lot of people need to say, listen, losing weight is a process. It's not an overnight thing, but you have to stick to it and you have to maintain it as well. A lot of people start it when they are obese or overweight and then say, oh, I'm not seeing any results. Let's go have a Kit Kat or bar one now. You know, that's the mentality of people. Okay, now I need to have 3 carbs in this meal because I've been trying everything and nothing's been working. So I'm just going to spoil myself. So I think maintaining a good lifestyle with those aspects that I spoke about. And I think one of the most important aspects is you have to minimize stress. You know, and I tell patients that you have to minimize stress. There's there's not many things that is in your control. And unfortunately, this process now is not in your control because had it been in your control, you would have been pregnant by now. Now it's not in your control, so you need to trust in the fertility clinic. You need to trust in the personnel in the fertility clinic, your experienced doctors and your embryologists and your IVF coordinators that are helping you as a team, an holistic team, to give you that pregnancy. But we can only do so much. At the end of the day, if a patient stresses out, it's going to cause a hormonal imbalance. You know, and I always tell patients, your hormones are it's like, if you think about it, it's like a waterfall. No? So you have the water that's coming from the top to the bottom, and its destination is at the bottom of that waterfall. But if you put a log through that, with the trajectory of the water is not going to go down. It's going to go to another side. The hormones also act in the same way as well. If you're going to induce that log, which is a stress factor, then you're not going to get a good pulsatility of the hormones that you're needed in order for good and stress can do that. It can cause so much. It causes the body not to be in homeostasis. And I think that's one important aspect of it is minimize stress. I always tell patients, you know, forget about the process. Act like you are coming to a doctor, like a GP, because you've got a flu. So you're going to get an injection. You don't know if you're going to get better or you're going to get worse, but you take the injection. And then you just go home and sleep and relax and you forget about it. So take the same
almost feel, sorry, Neville, to break your word, but I almost feel that the stress management needs to start before you actually endure or this, you know, proceed on this journey. So that you can maintain it during the journey.
And I think that's the way the Genesis Reproductive Centre, we pride ourselves on making sure we have holistic treatment for our patients. And from the beginning interaction with our staff, with our doctors, until you come to the embryology department, where we also have a very personal interaction with the patients as well. And we say to patients, relax yourself, calm yourself down. We give them techniques of how to calm themselves down as well. And we play music for our patients so that we can get them in a nice mood when they come for the embryo transfer, so forth. Because all of that, in a nutshell, will impact on the patient. And it's, you know, because if you're too clinical, sometimes you're going to get the aspect where the patient is so stressed. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to fall pregnant. And pedantically putting yourself in a test. So minimizing stress, I would say, is one of the most important factors, together with your lifestyle and importantly, watching weight, eating healthy, and exercising. And staying away from the baddies, smoking, alcohol, and drugs.
Thank you so much for that brilliant answer, Neville.
Thanks very much. I think Genesis should never lose that, you know, being around, centering around the patient itself and you know, having that place where you can go and you feel good and you know, speak about the stresses and all those things and guide the patient, but more around, like you said, it's centered around the patient. Never lose that ever. I think patients would really appreciate that going forward. So thank you very much, Neville. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time out to do this. And I know you've got meetings as well, but we really appreciate your input on this. So if you guys want to get hold of Neville or get hold of Genesis and want to know more about Genesis, what they offer, there are amazing doctors there. I know you guys always have talks with Dr. Deo. Everyone loves her.
I just love Dr. Deo.
Yeah, it's Rizana goes on and on about Dr. Deo. She's so amazing. She's a really sweet woman. But yeah, if you guys want to get hold of them, Genesis, they do have a website. I think it's genesisart.co.za. Am I correct? Here we go.
100%.
And
But we
can,
are busy at the moment renovating our website as well. But you can, the old website is still available. And
yes.
our contact details are 012-367-4378. Or you can email us on info@genesisart.co.za or reception@genesisart.co.za.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Neville. And thank you guys for joining us. Thanks, Rizana. Thanks, Neville. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
I just want to say
Bye.
thank you to Fertility Solutions again and wish you guys all the best and a wonderful day.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Neville.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care.